SG is one of the manufacturers along with iReadyGo, or at least that's my understanding of how that kind of works. So apparently I'm turning it on already. Looks like I pushed the button in the box. And I was just kind of really excited to find this. Much as a manufacturer of cell phones makes some other models of phones with built-in hardware capabilities. One just really looks like a really bulky kind of gaming controller, and the other one looks like a phone, but it only has, you know, one analog stick and a couple buttons, and it doesn't have very nice internals. This device has an octa-core MK6592 that is a MediaTek processor, and I understand that MediaTek doesn't really have the best reputation in terms of making decent, you know, system on chips. But I'm going to show you some gaming demonstrations, and for me, it seems to work just great. Has 2 gigs of RAM, a 5-inch IPS screen, and the IPS screen actually has very nice viewing angles, and it is a nice color reproduction as far as I can tell, and it seems like a very pretty screen. So that was kind of a surprise to see when I paid so little for it. The GPU is a Mali 450 MP4, I believe. It's not quite what Qualcomm is using in their newer chips. So that is kind of a disappointment for a gaming phone. However, it still gets the job done, and I believe the hardware buttons completely make up for it, or at least for me they do. It also has the North American kind of 3G radio band frequencies, which was something really important for me. You can see up at the top there, I'm getting 3G service right now. I'm on T-Mobile. For 3G service, it uses, I believe, the 900, 1900, and 2100 megahertz bands. Then for 2G, it's like 850, 900, and a bunch of others. And I'll go ahead and put a link in the description to the store page that I bought from, so you can see the full specs for it on there. Yeah, like I said, I've been using an Nexus 4 for about the past 2 years. So kind of anything as a downgrade was kind of a no-go for me. So I think the octa-core in this is kind of very comparable to the Snapdragon 400 quad-core and my Nexus 4, which is what I'm using to record this. And like I said, it is a phone. So if you can see at the top here, where is it? So I believe right there, the 2 holes are where you hear when you're using it as a device. And then down here at the bottom, there's where you speak into. It does have a front-facing camera, which I think is pretty funny. And then I believe has an 8 megapixel rear-facing camera on the back there. And actually, this camera has been the most disappointing kind of feature of the phone. I'm hoping that they'll fix it in future updates to the device. But oh, that's a pretty screen. But we'll see. So let's go ahead and run Antutu if I can find it. Oh, that's the. And you'll kind of be able to see what kind of performance we're looking at here. I'll just go ahead and prop it up like that. So you can see the last time I ran it, it got a 28,000. Okay. The Nexus 4 consecutively, as many times as I've run that, usually gets about 22 to 24,000. So it looks like the system on a chip here is pretty good in terms of raw CPU performance. The GPU performance is a totally another thing, just because I believe it's the Adreno 320 in the Nexus 4, and that's kind of a maybe 25 to 33% increase over this Mali 450. Okay, so it looks like the results are in for the Antutu test, okay? It looks like in this case it got about 32,000, which is actually one of the higher results I've seen. You'll hear it down here, Nexus 4 at the bottom. Well, and so that's actually a really good score, better than I've gotten before. And you'll see here it's listed as the 78 Dian P01. Again, if you're looking for this on the internet, you'll find it listed under all different types of names, okay? And so now I guess I should probably show you kind of what this was made for and playing games. And so what was the one I was going to do first? Where is Beach Buggy Blitz? Here we go. So you'll notice this little green icon right here and that UI that just popped up. A bunch of Android games for anyone who's ever tried to use maybe a PS3 controller or one of the Moga, third-party controllers you can buy for Android gaming. Many different games don't have built-in hardware support for controllers. I believe Modern Combat 4, which is a pretty high-quality first-person shooter for Android, does not have very good, if at all, if any, hardware support. So you'll see here that I believe this game does. And I can use the joystick to go left and right here. But if I push this little green button here, you'll see a few settings come up, like optimization, custom settings. If I press the optimization button, you'll see a layout that someone has designed that provides kind of a virtual compatibility layer, which allows people to drag and drop all the different buttons up here, which correspond to these buttons on the sides. So like the square button, and then if I push the square, it would kind of do it on the screen as a compatibility layer between the hardware and the touch screen. So you'll see in the layer for this specific game, someone's created an optimization layer that just uses the right and left bumpers as buttons for turning right and left. And so that wasn't a hardware input. That's what someone's programmed in using that nice little compatibility layer. And I think that's a really great, easy to use interface that whoever designed the phone, whether it's Much iReady Go or 78DN, included with the kind of user interface and Android screen, or Android UI, so to speak. Okay, so this is not a very difficult game to play. Let's go ahead and show a more difficult game to run in terms of specs and speed and things like that. Program that's going to use a little more processing power to run. I know emulators are a big scene for Android. PPSSPP has a very nice user interface, and it also allows for the specific hardware buttons that we can program in. So if I want the D-pad up, I can just push my buttons here, and then it's good to go. And I've programmed them all the way through, just like the original PSP controls. So this is a great device for PSP emulation, in my opinion. Let's go ahead and load up Monster Hunter, which is going to be one of the more difficult games to run. Let's go ahead and load a state here. So here's me out in the world. And you notice that it's running at about 30 frames per second there at the top. Let's see if I can... So I did hear it briefly mentioned in kind of a non-English speaking site that this screen refresh rate is not 60 hertz and is instead only like 52 or 57 hertz, which can make some emulation a little weird, because in some cases it'll go down to 30 frames per second, which allows it to include a kind of VSync feature. Or it will, for some older games like some SNES emulation, it will completely ruin the graphics of the emulation because somehow they're tied to the refresh rate of the screen. So I haven't run into that issue yet with anything I've played. I believe this 30 frames per second is kind of the normal frame rate for this game. Correct me if I'm wrong. But as far as I can tell, everything's been running really great. Okay. Yeah, so that's kind of just a brief overview of the device. Everything works super great as far as I can tell. You can install all the regular Google apps, so Hangouts and things works just fine. If there's any other videos you want to see of me using the device for a specific task, go ahead and let me know. Otherwise, I just wanted to kind of provide a brief overview of the device itself. You can see the little snail logo at the bottom. And I have to say, I really like the kind of copper textured accents on the sides of the device. Rear-facing speaker, volume rockers, headphone jack. Let's see. I've kind of shown you everything else. It does have OTG USB support for HDMI output at 720p. Or at least that's what the specs say. I don't have the cable to test that feature, but it should work just fine. Everything else with the device has been working really awesome. I haven't run into any issues. In fact, the Wi-Fi capabilities work better than my Nexus 4. So for my university Wi-Fi, I wasn't able to connect before, and now I can with this device. So I'm not sure if that's a specific Wi-Fi issue or what, but yeah. Okay. Thanks for watching, guys.